Okay, so we've got about 40 minutes, and what we thought we'd do is have 3 or 4 groups, depending on how many people can sit around the table. And for each group, we would have one of our distinguished resource persons sort of thrash through the issues with you in a bit more detail, focusing on their presentations, but also anything else that you think they could help you with. So, Nick, tell us what your group had to say.
Okay, our group concentrated on tools for think tanks and tools that they'd used. There was quite a few users in terms of organizations of Facebook. They found that content is important, so you have to have a stream of content to make Facebook work for you. Otherwise, no one sees that your page is there. But when there was another person that for Grupo Faro, I think, that they've used advertisement on Facebook, and they've put an advert. $100 they spent on it, but got a lot of clicks through from a very specific set of people that they targeted it to Ecuadorians of a certain age, so that was a very successful trial. The integration of Facebook to other tools, so blogs that automatically post to Facebook, has worked for other institutes, I think Facebook has been for lots of them a great way of drawing traffic to their websites, and sort of getting people to come to events and those kinds of things. So posting invitations to events and those kinds of things. We also discussed blogs in general. One particular comment was there's a problem with no comments on a blog, and it's a blog by an a set of economists, and there was a lot of discussion about that. There were questions around whether the culture in the country is for comments on it. There's also a discussion on whether, if it's economists writing, is the blog too authoritative? Are people nervous about challenging the authority of the writers? Some suggestions based on mine and other experiences were to understand the culture, to draw more people to the blogs, but also maybe to think about what style works for the blog. So if you're more personal, if you put the people, so people are responding to people, you may get more comments. Also, it may be that your website is not the place for interaction. It may be that Facebook is the place for interaction, and your website is a place for learning. So don't be disheartened. It might just be that you're not going to get interaction on your website because of the nature of people and why they're coming to your website. 1 second. Visualization tools were discussed. A particular example of an Estonian budget tool. So tools that show lots of very in-depth data but allow the public to access it in really in innovative and enticing ways. Potentially a lot more public and a lot more media-oriented. So looking at visualization tools. We had a discussion on mobiles, which obviously there's countries in Africa where more people access the internet through mobile than they access it from a computer. Yet there is very limited experience actually of using mobiles for think tanks, at least at our table. SMS and phone calls had been used for a membership organization, and one interesting example is I'm not sure of your organization's name. The IEA are going to use M-Pesa, a mobile payment system, to collect their membership payments from the coming months. So that's a very interesting one that isn't about communications, it's about the organization changing to use a digital channel. And also there were discussions about how a few pay for airtime of mobiles as an organization for their senior researchers. Some others actually give BlackBerries. So how much does the organization invest in facilitating mobiles for internal communication as much as anything? And then finally, I think the last last 2 ones were e-learning. People have used online learning tools to carry out courses. There's a particular course called the ERA course ERA, which is American universities that are offering free courses for around the areas of think tanks are interested in. Or okay, free courses are basically offered by American universities. You have to try and take some kind of test. Yeah. You sit a final exam, you have tests every week and you sit a final exam, but that's being offered free online. But there's also things like iTunes University where you can go in and download free courses as given by American universities or other universities. Final thing was YouTube. Some organizations are using YouTube to put their videos on, yet there was at least one example of an organization that has lots of video content but doesn't put it onto YouTube. And potentially that's actually quite minimal effort to get it up, but you can get a lot of views and lots of people into your content. So lots of different examples of use.
Thank you, that's great.
Yeah, so we actually discussed how the web TV was helping in accessing talent, of course. One of the ideas was to reach the community that could lend us regular material for this web TV. Of course, given our own resource, we can't have programs 24/7 all the time. So the best thing that we do, as one of the group members rightly put it, get internees to work, actually. So we took it to the extreme, basically. We asked the university students to make documentaries based on their term papers, for example, and send them to us, and we'll pre-screen them, and we'll shortlist them, and then we'll showcase the best 3 out of them, you know. So just one of the ways to accumulating material for the web TV. The importance of website, for example, we didn't have much time over here, but if you compare, for example, our web TV website with the more experienced web TVs in the industry, we are way down the order. Certainly this tells you about the importance of having an equally good IT team managing the web TV's website, basically. So that was an important part. We also discussed about web TV not being able to answer, for example, the needs of each and every theme, for example. So we discussed about the fact that in many countries there's low internet penetration rate. So maybe web TV may not be the ideal tool, but the way, for example, I would like to have a look at it is that number one, if I'm going for niche audience, which is in the case of sustainable development, I'm trying to focus on gaining attention from policymakers. Most of them do have internet. And second, even if there is low internet penetration rate today, I know that internet is here to stay. So my investment today will not get lost. So the website is being established over time. And certainly the web TV strategy cannot work in isolation. So as Nick said, one needs to have an integrated strategy, integrating the web TV with the mainstream social media that is in place. So yes, you would have an Facebook page, you would have a LinkedIn page, for example. So you need to think through how to carefully sequence the messages so that you could get people to get traffic to your web TV, basically. Finally, yes, we discussed that when you have YouTube, for example, and you can post comments over there, what would be the rationale in having your own web TV, you know? So this has a lot to do with branding, for example. So number one, I would like people to watch the documentary, and they can watch my documentary either on my web TV or on my channel on the YouTube, but I want them to post comments on my web TV's website, you know. Hence the reason for bringing them to our website, because we want the comments to be posted over there. Even if they don't do that, you still have the last transition when your video is finishing on the YouTube, where you have the web TV's website, which, if they are interested, should bring them over there, you know. So this has a lot to do with branding yourself in the longer term. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. I think we had a very interesting conversation. I mean, one thing I'll say is that to the question of whether the world is changing, there was a sense of I think consensus that there is a young generation. There are young researchers, young staff in all the organizations who are coming into the organizations, and they are using these new tools, and they are engaging with their peers in different ways. The question is, how do you let them? Can you let them go off on their own, or does it have to be part of a more controlled plan? One of the things we raise is that, of course, they're not alone, right? They are young, but just like they are young researchers, there are young policymakers, there are young journalists, there are young NGO workers, they're their peers, so they are building a constituency at that level. So maybe in the future they will be able to reach others. And so when it comes to using these tools, another thing that's changing is the language that we use. So one of the contributions is that it's not just about communicating the same, but through a blog, but through Twitter, but through Facebook. Is the language in these different spaces is different, because different audiences, different groups of people use it for different things. So the organizations need to think about this and learn about this. And that's also going to change the way they communicate and what they communicate in these new spaces. So it's going to be the challenge of the access to the internet, which can be because the internet is not actually developed enough, or for instance in other countries there's no electricity, so it comes and goes and you're stuck with it. But there are things you can do. So you can start to, for instance, digitalize all your back studies, all the studies you've done in the past and that are not in file, they're in hard copies. Just put them into an archive. Just be ready for when you can start to promote your organization and your website and your work. You can create intranet, you can create spaces within your offices so that your staff itself can actually access information more quickly and more easily. You can use some of these tools to avoid time searching for things by going to the people or to the organizations or to the websites that filter information for you before you have to do it, in the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or hour that you have of internet. And then we had a little conversation about impact, whether these things impact. And I hope you will agree with me that Nick, that you would never claim that all of these things necessarily need to impact, but they don't hurt us. And they do provide, and that's one of the things in that presentation is there's a very interesting tool that Nick developed for ODI, which allows you to visualize as much as possible where your work is going and who's reading it and who's using it. So it does provide the organization and the managers of the organization and the researchers with information that is useful to make decisions about your work. It'll tell you what documents are being downloaded and where and how frequently, so you can think about what's the reason behind this. And I think we finished with I don't know if a consensus, but certainly a question that wasn't, you didn't say no, but this is likely to change the organizations. It's likely to change the nature of think tanks in the future. Maybe not now, but we've got to be prepared for that.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for coming. We had two objectives. One was to provide a starting point for your organization to begin thinking about digital strategy that fits your context, your capacity, and your institutional needs. I hope the engagement with our resource persons and their presentations gave you some food for thought. A number of you are already engaged on that route, and actually you probably have a lot to teach the rest of us. And the second objective was to help you determine if and when and how you should take advantage of these various tools. As Nick pointed out, there are lots of tools out there, but they really have to drive your needs, whether they're research, management, or communications. So thanks a lot for taking part in this and for coming. We've got your names, so we're going to send you a list of resources, and we'll encourage you to engage with the On Think Tanks blog, which Enrique runs. Thank you very much.